all of which doesn't just create a culture of violence, but a culture of justified violence. Liberals hated it when Kyle Rittenhouse, they hated him, but somehow the liberal capital of the world is okay with making 500 movies about vigilantes. They hate it when gun people say it takes a good guy with a gun to stop a bad guy with a gun, but then they endlessly produce movies with that exact plot. Now, thanks, one guy. Now, am I saying don't make these movies? No, not at all. I've never forced censorship or organizing society around what crazy people might do. But don't look me in the eye and tell me this isn't a big part of the problem. Every bad idea a kid can get about how to handle feeling abused and disrespected is in all these movies, including the ridiculous cliche that if you are the good guy, the avenging angel who's doing all the killing, you never get shot. And if you do, it's nothing. This is how bad guys get shot in movies.
Good morning. It's Friday, Aristotle Friday, September the 15th, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have AOC, Jim Jordan, Matt-Gaetz, Bishop-Barron, Rules for Retrogrades, No Free Lunch, The Rape of the Mind, My Take, Stuart-Varney, Maria-Bartiromo, and Aristotle for Everybody. Difficult Thought Made Easy. All that and more when I get back. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Thank you, and now there's no free lunch. 250 Economic Truths by David-Bahnsen.
Peace prevailed in large part because non-intervention became the hallmark of foreign policy. There was unprecedented freedom of movement for people, goods, and capital. Trade expanded, strengthening the stake that nations had in the continued prosperity of one another as customers and suppliers. While free trade was never a guarantee of peace, it reduced the danger of war more than any public policy ever had. Jim Powell. The last part of this entirely brilliant sentiment and the nuance therein is so important. Countries that trade with each other may very well not like each other, but the risk of war violence is exponentially reduced. History and common sense tell us this. That there is no guarantee does not give us the right to ignore the substantial wisdom in risk mitigation that such beneficial cooperation affords. All the treaties and policies in human history have not reduced nation-on-nation violence as much as free trade has.
And that was There's No Free Lunch by David-Bahnsen. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, the rape of the mind.
Chapter 10. The child is the father to the man. The time has come to ask ourselves if it is possible that there is something in our own growth and development that may make us more vulnerable to mental intrusion and ultimate brainwashing. Are there, for instance, special coercive needs in us? What is communicated and taught to the child that may keep him a spiritual prisoner of his environment? These are important questions and would require a thorough philosophic and pedagogic investigation. Nevertheless, for practical purposes, we may limit our attention to two different spheres of development: the influence of parents and the influence of certain social habits. The latter has already been investigated in the second part of this book. Indeed, I must repeat that in my experience, all those who are educated under rules of too strict obedience and conformity break down more easily under pressure. During World War II, when the so-called tough SS officers were interrogated after they'd become prisoners, they readily surrendered their military secrets. Having lived for years under totalitarian command, they were just as obedient to the new commanding voices. Sometimes we only had to imitate the shouting voices of their masters, and they would exchange their former boss for the new one. For them, every command had become automatic trigger for new conforming obedience. In dealing with members of the Communist Party in this country, we had a comparable experience. The members were politically submissive and changed their obstructive party strategy to an opposite set of tactics the moment Moscow ordered them to do so.
And that was The Rape of the Mind by Joost-meerlo, MD. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, rules for retrogrades. 40 tactics to defeat the radical left.
Rule 17. Never ever frag a fellow retrograde. This is a modification of President Reagan's rule. Never say anything negative about a fellow conservative. The only misbehavior worth correcting a retrograde over is selling out by directly pandering to the enemy and or committing intrinsically evil violations of the Decalogue. The retrograde must never presume to impugn a fellow retrograde for his manners or style. Never correct a retrograde for a moderate or minor etiquette breach, especially if the retrograde being impugned has a strong track record of good work exposing radicals and cooperating with fellow retrogrades. The most prominent current instance of the violation of this rule involves petty virtue signaling by white knight retrogrades, along with a generous helping of true mods who have appointed themselves the tone of voice police. Not only does constant tone of voice self-recrimination by retrogrades condemn many of our best people and generate endless infighting, but most importantly, it promotes a right-wing version of a toxic ingredient of radicalism, relativism. As the name implies, relativism absolutizes the relative and relativizes the absolute. Tone of voice is an article of each human being's prudential judgment, meaning that harsh or mellow, sweet or sour, loud or quiet, it cannot be judged according to the same absolute moral and logical standards that one's words can be. Radicals prefer to police their interlocutor's tone of voice precisely because so doing allows them to obviate the plain truth by swapping what is absolute, text, for what is relative, tone. Radicals also prefer it because they fear the fact that righteous men often harbor heated righteous anger in view of radical injustice. Radicals can avoid just chastisement by asserting that there is no proper occasion for indignation, which is a lie. The retrograde cannot allow himself or his righteous anger to appear to be bested by the tepid illogic of radicalism. The foolish chastisement and finger-wagging at retrogrades by fellow retrogrades threatens to do just this, however. Accordingly, a retrograde should never get preachy or become a white knight with regard to another retrograde's angry tone of voice. Naturally, the radicals rejoice in such defeatism, fatalism, and infighting by the retrogrades, since it wins for them a contest they could not otherwise win. Reasonable minds will differ. To say reasonable minds can differ is to commit oneself to a certain eventual misunderstanding. No two human beings are possessed of a single identical mind. Accordingly, it is only a matter of time before the finest two theoretical retrograde minds will come to disagree about some minor matter. Even middling matters of intra-Christian disagreement are not hills on which any of the good guys should die. We want them all to live to fight another day. In this age, the good guys should err on the side of feistiness and fustiness with foes. They should err on the side of friendliness and fellow feeling with friends. It's that simple. Yet the average Christian today is thrice as likely to cry out, "Charity! Charity!" when he hears his fellow Christian dialoguing with the enemy, and he's thrice as likely to call down the thunder upon that grouchy Christian who might have darkened his tone of voice in dialogue with that anti-Christian. This rule enjoins retrogrades to reverse this perverse trend. Lastly, one wonders, how should disagreement among retrogrades be handled? The answer is simple. Charitably, professionally, technically, scholastically, above all, privately. A retrograde's technical or logical errors of reasoning, never to be confused with a non-preferred tone of voice or approach, should indeed be pointed out by his friends, but the manner of correction should be private and dignified. It should be an amicable boon to the errant retrograde himself, with the purpose of restoring his recto ratio, right reason, a recovery he will, as a wise man, welcome. Correct a sagacious man, and he will thank you for it, as the saying goes. Naturally, this sort of self-quarantine in the retrograde camp is to be lauded, not condemned. We reserve our condemnations for the radicals themselves and for petty, turncoating, infighting.
And that was Rules for Retrogrades, Rule 17, 40 Tactics to Defeat the Radical Left by Timothy and David Gordon. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, Bishop Robert Barron.
The hybrid quality of the human being is key to a lot of our poetry and a lot of our drama and a lot of the tension and beauty of being human. We're both physical and spiritual. We're like animals and we're like angels. We're very much of the earth and we're like other animals. That's now coming from the dust of the earth, as Genesis puts it, in not scientific language, but poetic language, but making much the same point that we're of the earth. Good. And we should never forget that. But at the same time, we're more than animals. There's a qualitative difference between even the highest of the animals who are simply of the earth and us who are of the earth, but we also have, and here's that lovely idea, the Ruach Adonai, the breath of the Lord, breathing into us what makes us distinctively human. This is our mind, our wills, our freedom, our properly spiritual capacity. So Genesis says it here in poetic language of God breathing into us, and then we earthly animal things become a living.
And that was Bishop Robert Barron. Thank you. And now, Stuart-Varney's My Take.
The latest Fox polls are a shot in the arm for Donald Trump and a huge disappointment for President Biden. I'll start with Trump. The poll of Republican primary voters gives him a 47-point lead over his closest rival. He now gets 60% support. In August, it was 53%. Well, could it be the voters believe Trump is being unfairly persecuted? That's not what the Democrats expected when they launched an indictment binge. But when they drag him through the dirt, that's what they get. Then there's the president. losing ground with all key constituents. Look at this. Suburban women, he's down 12 points. All women, down 11. Blacks, down 10. Voters under the age of 45, down 7. Hispanics, down 5. These are the groups that put Joe Biden in the White House. Without them, his chances of women winning are slim and none. Why is this happening? Biden has multiple problems which seem to get worse. Age, cognitive ability, Hunter on gun charges, all of the issues from inflation to migrants, Kamala Harris, and now impeachment. It's all coming at him from different directions, and these polls show it. Democrats don't particularly like Fox, but they will take notice of these polls. They must be very worried. Biden is losing, Trump is winning. For Democrats, that is a horror show. Second hour of violence.
And that was the bloody tourist Stuart-Varney. And again, here he's getting a double whammy, a double shot in the arm, a double shot at getting increased ratings, and to get even richer than he already is, because he gets to talk about Trump and Biden in the same story. Good for you, you bloody tourist. I hope you get filthy rich. Not that you aren't already. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, a little bit of Stuart-Varney.
Russell Fry joins me now. Congressman, you're a member of the Oversight Committee. Your committee will hold the first Biden impeachment hearing this month. The chair is James Comer, and he wants to see the Biden emails with those fake names. If you get those emails, what do you think they might show?
So, that's a stupid question, Stuart. You bloody tourist. If he knew what they're going to show, he wouldn't need to see them, would he? So, why doesn't he here? Well, let's continue with this a little bit.
Well, I think it's just suspicious. You have 3 different aliases, and so I think what we want to do is see, we're leaving no stone left unturned, and we want to see the content of these emails, the type of communications that we're going back and forth. Look, as we've continued this investigation, in my opinion, not a week has gone by that has been favorable to the president from an evidence standpoint. Every single week, there's more things that we uncover, that we find out, and we're going to follow the facts, and we're going to highlight the truth for the American people.
So there, he answers that. Instead of telling Stuart-Varney, excuse me, Stuart, that's a stupid question. Do you have anything else you want to ask me? He goes ahead and he comes up with this BS rambling response. Why? Why would he do that? Simple, because they have a symbiotic relationship. The congressman needs Stuart. Stuart needs the congressman. Stuart needs the congressman because he's a greedy, bloody tourist, and he wants controversy. Controversy sells. So if he pokes the congressman, then he's hoping he's going to get eyeballs on, ratings will go up, and he gets richer. The congressman needs Stuart-Varney for obvious reasons. He needs him for re-election purposes. The congressman gets to come on free without having to spend any of his campaign money, and he ends up getting more name recognition and, again, free advertising for his upcoming campaign. So the solution here is non-profit news now. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, a little bit of Maria-Bartiromo. She's interviewing and speaking with Jason Smith, a Republican from Missouri.
Well, I mean, look, Congressman, you've also addressed the border with fully funding the border security consistent with H.R. 2. Most people would agree that that should be the priority, although your colleagues on the left are saying that this is all politics and you want the government to shut down. If the government shuts down, won't Republicans be blamed?
If there's a government shutdown, Republicans are always blamed.
Thank you. So, wrong. Mistake. Huge tactical mistake. Huge tactical mistake. This is what the Republicans do all the time. You concede the point, now you're screwed. You're basically going out and confessing to the entire country that you are to blame, that the Republicans are to blame. You want to get that off of people's minds. You don't, psychologically, it is huge and important that you not accept the blame. So when she asks, she says, aren't Republicans going to take the blame? The right answer there is to say, well, of course not. Why would we take the blame? That's the way to approach it. She comes back with an answer to that question. You ask her another question, something along the lines of, isn't it true that the Democrats are the ones that want to bust the budget? Isn't it true that the Democrats are the ones that are irresponsible as far as spending is concerned? Okay, so who is it that really wants a government shutdown? Never concede, especially in public. I mean, it's one thing to do it if it's you and Mr. Socialist in the break room at your work, but if you're a congressman on television and the whole country is able to see and hear what it is that you're doing and saying, you must be very cautious and never, ever concede. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now from the Ayn Rand lexicon, subjectivism. Quote, subjectivism is the belief that reality is not a firm absolute, but a fluid, plastic, indeterminate realm which can be altered in whole or in part by the consciousness of the perceiver, i.e. by his feelings, wishes, or whims. It is the doctrine which holds that man, an entity of specific nature, dealing with the universe of a specific nature, can, somehow, live, act, and achieve his goals apart from and or in contradiction to the facts of reality, i.e. apart from and or in contradiction to his own nature and the nature of the universe. Unquote. Back in a minute. Thank you. A little bit more Maria-Bartiromo with the same guest.
House Speaker Kevin McCarthy went after some reporters yesterday because they claim that the GOP has not produced any evidence against President Biden in this money laundering bribery allegation. Let's take a listen. Watch.
Do you believe the president lied to the American public when he said he'd never talked to his son about business dealings? Yes or no? It's all right. You can't answer that? Do you believe when they said the president went on conference calls? Do you believe that happened?
That's what the testimony says.
Okay. Do you believe the president went to Cafe Milano and had dinner with the clients of Hunter Biden, who believes he got those clients because he was selling the brand?
That's what the testimony.
Then I go back. Do you think the president lied when he said
that an impeachable is lying and impeachable?
So right there, I don't know if you could hear it, but the reporter asked, but is lying an impeachable offense? There's a myth in this country that the impeachment, and it depends on, who it is that's getting impeached. Each side will always say, well, this doesn't rise to an impeachable offense. Let's get serious about impeachment. Impeachment is basically a way of telling politicians nobody serves forever. Okay, there's a myth that the Supreme Court serves for life. It does no such thing. Everybody who is an office holder serves at the pleasure of the people of the United States of America. And if and when the people of the United States of America want an office holder gone, they're gone. That's what impeachment is about. If the vast majority of American people say, we want Biden gone, he's gone. The American people decide what is an impeachable offense, not the Fourth Estate, not the Republican Party, not the Democrat Party, not Maria-Bartiromo, not Stuart-Varney. The American people as a whole, we decide what becomes or rises to the level of an impeachable offense. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, Matt-Gaetz.
I couldn't tell if you cut away to Kevin McCarthy or a commercial for low T, because yesterday's impeachment is somehow today's not impeachment. Good gracious, if we actually have to go make the case against Joe Biden, let's hope we have effective people like Jim Jordan and James Comer making the case, and maybe turn off Kevin McCarthy's microphone for a while.
And that was Matt-Gaetz about the Speaker of the House. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now Jim Jordan on Fox News.
So evidence, 10% for the big guy. No one has disputed that the big guy is Joe Biden. 50% for Pops. You can just go. The brand, according to Devin Archer, Hunter Biden's business partner, the brand was in fact Joe Biden. Multiple Bidens receiving money, multiple companies set up, multiple times the White House has changed their story on this whole situation. So on and on it goes.
As a friend of mine said the other night, is also a very prominent lawyer, said, look, if this stuff is true, this is much bigger than Watergate. I mean, selling U.S. access, influence for money for your family member, who's the closest family member to you other than your wife.
Dinners, phone calls, and meetings. Is
that not?
That's why we've moved to this phase of our investigation. That's why I think it was appropriate to do so, and that's why the Speaker announced it 2 days ago. And I think it's interesting that 2 days later you get this.
And that was Jim Jordan on Fox News. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, some Democrat leaders, including Ocasio-Cortez, are having a press conference, and they're getting shouted down in New York by New Yorkers, by their very own constituents. Just a little bit of this.
Immigrants flowing into the city. Watch.
And that we are joining with the city and state administrators.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here with Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and members of our delegation, as well as other members from other states that are here to see for themselves what the migration dynamic is in our nation. And what we saw there with children, families, people that want to work, people that are fleeing violence, people that are fleeing environmental disasters. We see so many stories, heartbreaking stories, manifest itself here. But I think these are folks that will take New York City to a better place. Every crisis presents great opportunity. There's hope and opportunity in this building. So I wanted to thank all my colleagues for coming.
And that was that goes on for 8 minutes, so you can hear the people that are shouting down, literally shouting down AOC and other members of this congressional delegation. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, Aristotle for Everybody, Difficult Thought Made Easy by mortimer-j-adler.
Chapter 14. What others have a right to expect from us. Aristotle said two things that seem to me uncommonly wise about the relation of one human being to another. Once understood, they are also common sense. He said that if all men were friends, justice would not be necessary. He also said that justice is the bond of men in states. Putting the two remarks together, we are led to conclude that the members of a state, which is the largest organized society to which we belong, are not all friends with one another. If they were, they would not need to be bound together by justice to form the society that we call a state. Most of us belong to more than one society or organized group. We are members of a family, either as parents or children, or as both. We may also belong to other organized groups, such as a school, a club, a business organization of one sort or another. All these are societies or associations of human beings who have combined with one another for some common purpose. The purpose of the association distinguishes two of these organized groups from all the rest. Associations such as schools, universities, hospitals, business organizations, and clubs all aim at serving some particular good. Educational institutions, for example, aim at the dissemination and advancement of knowledge. Hospitals at the care of health. Business organizations at the production or distribution of things to be bought and sold. And so on. In contrast, the family is a society that aims at sustaining the life of its members, and the state is a society that aims at enriching and improving that life. If there were no additional advantages to be derived from living in states, Aristotle thinks that human beings would have been content to continue living in the smaller society of the family, or in the slightly larger society formed by a group of families, something like what we call a tribe. What led men to group families into tribes and group tribes into still larger societies was, in Aristotle's view, the advantages to be gained from the larger and more inclusive associations. As we have seen, our aim as human beings should be not merely to stay alive, but to live well as possible. Staying alive, of course, is indispensable to living well. Not being solitary, but social animals, human beings must associate with one another in order to sustain and preserve their lives, and to bring into the world another generation that must be cared for and protected during infancy. The family and the tribe, according to Aristotle, are the associations or societies that originally came into being to serve these purposes. They may not do so any longer, or not to the same extent, but Aristotle asks us to think about their origin. What caused human beings to form these associations in the first place? One answer that may suggest itself is instinct. Instinct causes bees to form beehives, and ants to form ant colonies or ant mounds. Perhaps then it is a human instinct to form families, tribes, and states. If so, these societies would be completely natural, in contrast to such associations as schools, clubs, or business organizations. The latter are hardly the products of instinct. Men join together voluntarily to form these associations for the particular purposes they serve. In Aristotle's view, families, tribes, and states are no more the products of instinct than are schools, clubs, and business organizations. They're not like beehives and ant mounds, which for a given species of bee or ant are always organized in exactly the same way, generation after generation, and wherever you find that particular species of bee or ant. But though all human beings belong to the same species, we find quite different patterns of association and organization in human families, tribes, and states. That, according to Aristotle, indicates that these societies were, in origin, voluntarily and purposefully formed, and formed with some plan of organization that the human beings involved thought up for themselves. To this extent, they're like schools, clubs, and business organizations that human beings voluntarily, purposefully, and thoughtfully institute. But families, tribes, and states are also unlike schools, clubs, and business organizations because they are natural as well as voluntary. Does not Aristotle contradict himself by saying that families, tribes, and states are both voluntary and natural? He would be contradicting himself if he thought that families, tribes, and states were natural in the same way that beehives and ant mounds are natural, the product of instinct. But according to Aristotle, there is another way in which a society can be natural. It can be natural in the sense that it must be formed to serve some natural need, the need to stay alive or the need to live well. A society can be natural in this sense, and also be voluntarily, purposefully, and thoughtfully formed to serve the need that makes the society natural. Families, according to Aristotle, originated from the need of human beings to stay alive and to protect and rear their young. Groups of families, or tribes, being a little larger and involving more human beings working together, came into being in order to serve that same need a little more effectively. The even larger organization of the state, which originally grew out of combinations of families and tribes, not only served that same need still more effectively, but also served the additional purpose of enabling some individuals, if not all, to live well. Life itself being secure, attention and effort could be turned to improving life and making it richer and better. When Aristotle says that man is by nature a political animal, he is saying more than is meant by the statement that man is a social animal. There are other social animals, such as bees and ants, wolves that hunt in packs, and lions that live in families. But only men organize their societies voluntarily, purposefully, and thoughtfully, and establish laws or customs that differ from one human society to another. That is one meaning of the statement that man is a political animal. He is a custom-making and law-making animal. There is another meaning. When Aristotle declares that man is by nature a political animal, he's also saying that human beings cannot live well, cannot achieve the best kind of lives for themselves, by living together only in families and in tribes. To do that, Aristotle thinks they must live together in cities or states. The Greek word for a city or state is polis, from which we get the English word political. The Latin word for a city or state is civis, from which we get the English words civil and civilized. Being political by nature, men must live in states to live as well as possible. The good life is the civil or civilized life. Now let us return to the two statements with which this chapter began. If all men were friends, justice would not be necessary. Since the members of a state are seldom, if ever, all friends with one another, justice is necessary to bind them together peacefully and harmoniously in that largest of all human societies, the state. Let us, for the moment, suppose that the members of a family are all friends with one another, friends in the highest sense of that word. When two human beings are friends in this highest sense, they love each other. Their love impels each of them to wish for the good of the other, to wish to benefit the other, to do whatever may be necessary to improve or enrich the life of the other. Each, out of such friendship or love, will act to promote the happiness or good life of the other. Neither would do anything to injure the other by impeding or obstructing the other's pursuit of happiness. That is why justice would be unnecessary in a family in which the parents love their children, in which the children love their parents, and in which husband and wife, brothers and sisters loved one another perfectly and at all times. But in most families there are times when love or friendship fails or falls short of perfection. Then one member of the family may say to another, "You're not being fair to me," or "What you ask is unjust," or "I have a right to expect this or that from you." At such moments, love ceases to be the thing that binds the members of the family together, and justice enters the picture. Justice that tries to see that the individual obtains what he or she has a right to expect, that the individual is being fairly treated by the others, and that he or she is protected from being harmed or injured by them. If justice did not intervene when love failed or fell short of perfection, the members of the family might not stay together, or at least they would not live together peacefully and harmoniously, trying to share in the enjoyment of goods common to them all. What has just been said is even truer of states, in which the members are, for the most part, not related by friendship or love. Where love is absent, justice must step in to bind men together in states, so that they can live peacefully and harmoniously with one another, acting and working together for a common purpose. Aristotle knew that there are several different kinds of friendship. Of these, he thought that only one was perfect friendship, the kind that exists between persons who love one another and wish only to benefit the other. Aristotle also knew that such friendships are rare. More frequently, we speak of another person as being a friend because he is useful to us, or because we get some pleasure from him. Such friendships are selfish. The person we call a friend serves some interest of our own, and we regard him or her as a friend only so long as that remains the case. In contrast, true friendship or love is unselfish. It is benevolent. It aims at serving the good of the other. Justice, like love, is concerned with the good of the other person. However, there is a clear difference between them. Anyone who understands love knows that one individual should never say to another, "I have a right to be loved. You ought to love me." When we truly love someone, we do not give the person loved what he or she has a right to claim from us. On the contrary, we give to them of ourselves generously and unselfishly. without any regard to their rights. We do for them more than they have any right to expect. We sometimes even love persons who do not love us in return. We do not make their returning our love a condition for our loving them. But when we act justly toward others, giving them what they have a right to expect, we are selfish to the extent that we want justice from them in return. To say that we should do unto others what we would have them do unto us is selfish in this sense. What do others have a right to expect from us? That we keep the promises we make to them. That we tell them the truth whenever telling a lie would hurt them in some way. That we return anything we have borrowed and promised to return. That we pay our debts to them. That we do not steal what belongs to them. That we do not injure their health, damage their bodies, or kill them. That we do not interfere with their freedom of action when their conduct in no way injures us. That we do not make false statements that would injure their reputation or give them a bad name. All these things, and more of the same sort, can be summed up by saying that others have a right to expect from us that we do nothing that might impede or obstruct their pursuit of happiness, nothing that might interfere with or prevent their obtaining or possessing the real goods they need to make good lives for themselves. It is their need for these real goods that gives them a right to them, and it is their right to them that we are obliged to respect, if we ourselves are just. We may not always be just, at least not perfectly just. Some persons are the very opposite of just. Instead of having the habit of respecting the rights of others, they are habitually inclined in the opposite direction, to get things they want for themselves, even when to do so they must run roughshod over the rights of others. That is why laws are made to prescribe what the members of a state should or should not do in order to deal justly with one another. If everyone had the habit of being just in all his dealings with others, there would be no need for such laws or for their enforcement by the state. But since few individuals are perfectly just, and since some are habitually inclined to be unjust, laws that prescribe just conduct must be enforced by the state to prevent one individual from seriously injuring another by violating his or her rights. Do others have a right to expect us to act positively to help them in their pursuit of happiness? Not interfering with, impeding, or obstructing their efforts to obtain or possess the real goods they need is one thing. Helping them to obtain such goods is another. Have they a right to claim our help? According to Aristotle's understanding of the difference between love and justice, the answer is no. It is the generosity of love, not the obligations of justice, that impels one individual to help another to obtain or possess the real goods needed for a good life. That is why the laws that the state enforces do not require individuals to help one another by taking positive action to promote the pursuit of happiness by others. However, the state does make and enforce laws that require the individual to act positively for the welfare of the community as a whole. The welfare of the community affects the pursuit of happiness by its members. A good society, a society in which the common good of the people is served and advanced, contributes to the good life of its individuals. Aristotle says, in so many words, that the end that the good state should serve is the happiness of the individuals who compose it. It should promote their pursuit of happiness. When, therefore, we, as individuals, obey laws that direct us to behave for the welfare of the community as a whole, we are indirectly helping to promote the pursuit of happiness by our fellow human beings. What we do directly for a few others out of our love for them, we do indirectly for all the rest by obeying laws that require us to act for the welfare of the community in which they, as well as we, live.
And that was chapter 14 of Aristotle for Everybody, Difficult Thought Made Easy by Mortimer-J-Adler. Back in a minute. Thank you. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there, and reminding you to be honest, smart, and beautiful, and remember that the left has no authority, no power, and they can't win.